All right, our next artist is Paula Bellacera. She is a Sacramento native and has been creating and selling art nationally for many years. She's worked in a variety of media, including photography, printmaking, drawing, and painting. Currently, she uses clay to create sculptures of enchanting creatures that are full of personality. She exhibits her work locally in the Bay Area and in galleries in the Southwest. Hello, Paula.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. All right. So looks like you are surrounded by your creations. Tell me a little bit about your current body of work.
Oh, I'd love to. Yes, this is my studio, but also I'm showing in my husband's studio, which we will be doing that live later today. Um, During the pandemic, I've spent a lot of time in my studio and a lot more time thinking about the work that I'm doing. And it's taken kind of a shift, kind of a change. Excuse me. I'd like to show you some slides. Could I share my screen with you?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'd like to start with my tradition. I do animals. That's what I traditionally do. And usually these are older pieces. Usually they're the colors of nature. The fur is the color of a dog's fur, and the feathers would be the natural colors you would see on the animals. I use animals really as stand-ins for people and people's personalities, because they each have their own character and their own personality. They have their own, the tilt of the head or the resting on a paw or something like that. So this is the traditional work that I call traditional, the more nature-based work. Here's an example of a whole group of owls. I think they're called a parliament. I think when you get a bunch of owls together, they're called a parliament. Anyway, you could see how different each one is with the look, the gesture. You could see some are singing and happy and others are grumpy, and yet still staying with the more natural colors. I call this one Group Hug. This is a series of different breeds. They're natural, maybe exaggerated ear length and maybe exaggerated tongue length, but this is what I've been doing for a number of years. And as I mentioned, during the pandemic and isolation, I spent more time in my studio reconsidering what I want to do. And so I've moved into making a little bit more colorful, maybe a lot more colorful work based on body and face painting and from different indigenous tribes around the world, and different design work from different cultures. So I'm going to show you a little slide of what I'm doing now. Huge shift. I do both now, but this is what I'm really focused on. And these animals are as small as like 4 inches tall and as tall as like 22 inches tall. And I really enjoy doing the painting on the glazing. I use only glazes and underglazes. The animal, the sculpture itself, has become a kind of canvas for me and I work out these designs on paper first, and I'll show you some examples of that too. But I'm going to breeze through these so we can get to other questions. But I wanted to show you currently, that's this cat back here, Calico. She's 16 inches high, and her name is Amaretto. So I'm still doing the more traditional colors. This is a little 7-inch tuxedo cat. But in contrast, I'm also doing the more vibrant colors. This one is called Golden Cat, and the design work is fashioned after Japanese. It's influenced by Japanese design, and the face is more influenced by the kabuki theater, where they do the white face and the little red lips. Now, getting back to, now we're into the dog world. This is a French bulldog, the exaggerated ears, and I wanted to point out that I use underglazes, which are kind of flat, and then I use a glossy glaze for the eyes and the nose and the toenails. So each of my clawed animals gets a little manicure, and I like to have the contrast between the flat fur and feathers and the glossy eyes or beak or nails. And this is the new kind of colorful work. This particular piece is called a Keen, and it's 13 inches high and fashioned after African face and body painting. And Akin is a African Yoruba word for brave. And this piece is 22 inches high, about as big as I could build unless I build in pieces. This one is called Rough and Ready, R-U-F-F, and ready because he's so red. And some of the design work is based on Native American face painting, but you notice the back is really surprised. There's this whole other element on the back. And recently I took this piece to the gallery in Lafayette, Jennifer Perlmutter Gallery. And when we drove there, I did have the windows up so as not to distract other drivers, but it stayed there only a day. It was sold immediately. So I'm going to get back in my studio next week and get started on larger pieces again. This is an example again of the colorful work. The one on the left is called Bee, as in B-E-E, Happy Cat, because she's got the black and white stripes. And the one on the right is Blue Lotus Dog. And their names, you could also tell, come from the work on their back. I feel like it's kind of like a tattoo. It's an insignia. And the reason I like working like this is because every angle and every way you look at it, the pieces, they're different. They change, and there's a surprise when you walk around and see the backs of these pieces. And I do the same thing with the rabbits. This is a more natural looking rabbit, and now they're more stylized. This doesn't look like a real rabbit exactly. But once again, I've taken some Native American face painting and body painting ideas and applied it to this rabbit. And even more stylized, this rabbit's name is Wren, which means lotus, and he's more like a monk. He's wearing a monk's robe. So I'm experimenting, I guess, during this time of pandemic in the studio, isolated. I'm doing a lot of looking to other cultures and stylizing my animals. I just got 2 more slides real quick. This is an owl, a more traditional technique that I've used. It's very owl-like. The colors are very natural, although it has character. And then this is the newer style. This one's called Sparky. And what I like is that the back is a surprise. You see the front, it's kind of wows you with the color, but the back has the circles and dots, and the tail kind of looks like piano keys. So that's what I've been doing in my studio. And I'm going to close this now so we could talk some more about other things.
Well, thank you for sharing all those images. I think people have gotten a really good idea of what you've been up to. So that was really generous. Thank you. So you talked about how you're being sort of inspired by other cultures, and let's see, I'm trying to come up, I'm looking at the questions that we have agreed to, and I'm thinking like what you have not answered yet. So give me 1 second to just look at my notes here.
I can show you a little bit of my technique if that would be interesting.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your process and how you arrived to this. I think you mentioned showing drawings. I'd be interested in seeing like your sketches.
Right. Well, what I do is I create in clay. I look at a lot of pictures. Actually, first I get inspired by seeing something, like on a walk, seeing a hawk or an owl or a dog or a cat. I even stop pet owners sometimes and ask if I take pictures of their animals. And I scour the internet, I scour my books for a particular breed I want to do, and then I do sketches. And then that inspires me. And as I work with the clay kind of talks back, and together, I feel like it's a collaboration where the clay and I work together to create a character. And since it's been so smoky outside and smoky in my studio, I've moved into the house and into the dining room, and I make smaller pieces like this little cricket. So this cricket has been bisque fired, the first firing, and hear that sound? That means that it's vitrified, and then I could go ahead and glaze it for the next firing. The first firing in my kiln goes about to 1900, 2000 degrees, and then I glaze, like I said, with underglazes that are flat and other glazes that are glossy. And here's a piece that I've completed. And you can see the details of the spots. And they're so funny, these chameleons, you never know where they're looking. So between those two, when I'm in this stage, I take a photograph and I just print a black and white photograph and then I hand color it. So for example, over here you see this owl. I'll put him right there. His name is Popsicle because he's so colorful. When I took the black and white photo and then I play with watercolor, pastels, and pencils, and I try sketching and to get a look like I'd like. And then I do the final glazing, which isn't exactly like the drawing, but I have less risk when I have something to start with the drawing.
Yeah. I love your drawings on your website, and I can see that you've got all sorts of interesting, I mean, you're very accomplished, and you've got you studied photography and biology. So it's kind of interesting that your process starts out with photography and that you do have, at some point you were really studying animals, and that's kind of stayed with you this entire time.
Thank you for pointing that. Yeah, I studied animal behavior, and I think that has influenced me a lot. My other influences, my mom did ceramics. So that was an influence, and I'm glad you mentioned my website. I've got this little note here. On my website, you can see my other work, like my charcoal drawings and paintings, and my other media, and there are links to YouTube. There's a YouTube channel I share with my husband, who's a public artist and a gallery artist, and links to Facebook, Instagram, and you could sign up for our newsletter, and then you could be up to date on everything that we're doing.
Yeah, you were well prepared for this whole situation here.
Well, being, the whole COVID thing, I know it really impacts other people, but my husband and I are so used to Bellacera. We're so used to being in our studios for most of the day, isolated anyway. And so then we come back together for meals, and it's not too different. Things aren't too different from the way life usually is, except we can't go to receptions or parties. Or receptions. And speaking of receptions, I do have work at the Pence Gallery now in their auction, 2 small rabbits. And I also show at Sparrow Gallery in Sacramento and Jennifer Perlmutter Gallery in Lafayette, and galleries in the Southwest, as you mentioned in the bio.
Yeah, well, I'll be interested in seeing these newer pieces in person. I know I've seen your other work around for years all over Sacramento. I can remember seeing them. I think it's Solomon Dubnik, maybe. I don't know. That was a while back.
I showed there. Yes, I am a bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
when COVID is over, then we can have people come visit our studios. So just let us know on the website.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting at the end of this pandemic. I think that if there's any galleries left, there will be no shortage of art to show in them. We've all been busy.
You're absolutely right. So actually, I might have mentioned I have an online store as well. If you can't get out and about, you could see what's available, and my new work's on my online too.
All right. Well, thank you, Paula, for spending some time with us today.